I think Julien discovered Lipatti when he was still very young, and the same happened to me when I was also 50 years ago. I discovered Lipatti, and I was completely in a deep admiration, and he did influence me a lot.
Many of the earliest conversations that I had with Julien when I was just getting to know him were about other pianists. He was intrigued that I had done the art of piano, and so he was constantly asking me who I thought was good at one thing or good at another. And even when he was, even 6 years ago, he had an amazingly already developed sense that somehow the pianist that spoke to him really extraordinarily closely was Lipatti, who with whose recordings I was quite familiar, but through Julien's enthusiasm, I actually became even more intrigued by Lipatti. Of course, he's fascinating because there's a very small body of work. He died young. So in that sense, he's quite a romantic figure, and it's easy to understand why a young pianist would be drawn towards him.
I discovered Lipatti when I was about 17 or 18 years old, because I had a teacher at that point who said, you should listen to him. He said, I'll quote, he said, he's the golden ratio of piano playing and of music making. I mean, something like that. The golden ratio thing was what struck me. So I bought all the recordings, and I put them on my iPod. And I remember I was sitting in a train to Paris when I said, why wouldn't I listen to it now? And in front of me was this kid who was crying, and behind me there was a couple who was eating McDonald's. I mean, from all perspectives, this was not the greatest moment to listen to good music, but I said, let's go for it. And I put on this recording he made of this Bach G major chorale in a transcription of Myra Hess. And I remember being completely petrified in that train. I mean, it was, again, the most unpoetic place you could ever be. I discovered him at the right age because I was in this period of my life. It's like this sort of musical adolescence thing. And I think it's very healthy at that point to have something of an example, to have something of like a musical hero that you can look up to, and that you can take as a beacon somewhere and say, that's where I want to go.
Lipatti was one of the artists that had the most honest approach of music. I mean, honesty in a very deep way, how human beings can see the truth in something. So I think he had a real deep approach of music.
I think Julien's an explorer. I think he likes to look beneath the surface. His fascination with Lipatti 2 years ago took him to Switzerland. He wanted to meet somebody who had been Lipatti's first pupil.
The last time I went to Geneva to get the scores, the librarian there said, well, I know this woman, she was called Edith Salquin, who was in her 80s then, and this was in 2011, who was Lipatti's first student and who also was his last. He had quite a bunch of them, but she was the first to enroll in his class when he opened it in 45 or something. And, well, I said I want to meet her, and he arranged it, and the place where she lived was completely, in a way, it was hilarious, because it was, she led me up to this big living room. It was really huge, but you just couldn't sit anywhere. It was completely, there were piles of like scores and paintings and books and CDs and a couple of DVDs, and it was a piano hidden somewhere beneath a big pile of dust and scores and some more stuff. And I spent 2 afternoons there with her, sitting in front of this huge window looking out to the mountains, talking about Lipatti and Nadia Boulanger and all those people from this period. And I planned to go and meet her again and play for her. And unfortunately, she died 2 months later. I'm not really into fate things, but at that point you cannot just help thinking of, this was somehow meant to be, and she was actually, let's pay a tribute to that in this epoch of women's rights and women's liberties. She was the first woman to have obtained a conductor's degree.